There are simply some Saturdays in the world of college football where teams can't stop getting in their own way and it costs them a win. And we've watched it for years. We've seen it unfold, and it mostly happens in the SEC with teams that feel like that they've kind of turned the corner. They feel good about their coaching staff. They made some adjustments to the roster via the portal. They landed a really good recruiting class, and they're trending upward in all those directions. And now they're putting their money where their mouth is in NIL. But you watch the product take the field on Saturdays. They ultimately look lost. And you as a fan base wonder, can it get any worse than this? But it does not define your season. Well, it doesn't unless you're at Auburn, because that does define Auburn's season. Saturday's 24-14 loss to Arkansas is the epitome about what this Tigers team is going to be in 2024. Coaching is awful. The offense has no life. There's no direction defensively. And Hugh Freeze is now hearing the music because he threw his team under the bus. But there is a lot more that goes into this if you're an Auburn fan and what you need to expect moving forward. And for my best advice, you got to steer into the skid. So let's talk about it. Welcome on into SEC Unfiltered. It's Cole Thompson here. Make sure that you like the video, hit the ring notification down below, and of course, hit subscribe, because this is your #1 source for all things SEC moving forward. Download the podcast version of the show. Follow us on the socials at SEC Unfiltered. The best way to keep up with me is at Mr. Cole Thompson on Twitter and Instagram. And check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. This episode is brought to you by our friends over at GameTime. Download the GameTime app and use the promo code SECU for $20 off your very first purchase. Auburn fans, Jordan-Hare Stadium has got to be rocking when number 21 Oklahoma comes to town. Do so by downloading the GameTime app and use that promo code SECU, $20 off your tickets on us. Auburn looked lost on Saturday. There is no other way to put it. I thought this game was going to be out of control, disgustingly bad, and I told you all to hit the over. I truly thought with Peyton Thorne, Hank Brown, Taylon Green, there were going to be more turnovers than what you see on a busy Saturday in a bakery. I truly thought that. But I didn't think it was this bad. I didn't think it was going to be this tremendously awful. From the ball being on the ground with running backs, from wide receivers not finishing their routes, to even a freshman that I believe can be a difference maker basically coughing the football up. And the one time that Peyton Thorne made a great throw right into the hands of a Razorback defender. And it just felt like constantly shooting yourself in the foot, no life, no purpose, no direction. And the worst part is spooky season is right around the corner. I know that, but the dark times on the plains are going to well last past October. It is going to be an abysmal few months, because this is just the start. There's a legit shot, and my money, and I hate to break it to you Auburn fans, a more than likely opportunity that the Tigers in a 5-game home stretch go 2-3 before they're nearly gone for a month. And it does not get any easier. Oklahoma may not have a quarterback. They may have some question marks at the position, but they are just the first of your worries. At Georgia, at Missouri, Kentucky's defense on the road. Oh, by the way, then you welcome Diego Pavia back. How funny is it that Diego Pavia, the kid at New Mexico State, who many thought wasn't good enough for the SEC, might be the reason why yet your first game back, you lose once again at Jordan-Hare Stadium. And Hugh Freeze is facing a lot of heat right now. And I know that many people are saying, well, what about him throwing the players under the bus? And I have to count myself accountable, because if you watch our Sunday Funday show, you heard me say it rubbed me the wrong way that he threw his players under the bus. And then I broke the cardinal sin. My rule is, and my rule has always been, go listen to the entire audio before forming an opinion. If you want to read the headlines, that's fine. But then don't try to be a part of the conversation. So I went back and I listened to the audio, and clear as day, not only does he blame the players for putting the ball on the ground, tossing it into a defender's hands, he blames the coaching. And you know what? At that point, I at least got to give him credit. I got to give him credit for admitting that right now it is more than just the on-field players, because you and your staff look lost. It is the blind leading the blind over the cliff of misery. That's what it feels like on the plains right now. I will say this. It does feel wrong to blame your players in the spotlight. And I know there will be many people out there that will say players don't need to hear their names be drugged through the mud in the media. You're right. They don't. But when you sign that NIL check, all bets are off. That's my ruling. It is, and it kind of has to be. You want to go ahead and be able to play at the highest level in the conference where it just means more, where the competition is second to none, and it basically has become the semi-pro of the NFL. You got to be able to handle the criticism. I have to agree with that. But what I don't have to agree with is that Hugh Freeze at this point needs to only blame his quarterbacks. And many fans need to only blame Hank Brown, Peyton Thorne, and Hugh Freeze. Let's just call a spade, ladies and gentlemen. It is a dark and gloomy time, and it was always going to be a dark and gloomy time. There was never a reason to believe that you could land a Cam Ward and the problems that reside on the Plains were going to be fixed overnight. There's question marks at offensive line. There's question marks on the depth of the defensive line. There's question marks in the secondary. Your safety play is hit and miss. Your coaching has been anemic at best. When you look at the run game outside of Jarquez Hunter, which, by the way, here's a question that I have for Hugh Freeze, or I guess not Hugh Freeze, because if he says he doesn't call the plays he only calls the plays on Saturday, but doesn't go through the game process, why did you not start trusting Jarquez Hunter more on the ground? You do realize that in this game where you had 5 turnovers, including 3 from your freshman quarterback, you only ran the ball 26 times and 12 came to the most exclusive and, more importantly, the most veteran running back in the SEC. Please frame it that way. Auburn was never a quarterback away. You can go ahead and phrase however you want, bringing in a guy like a Jordan McLeod, or even bringing in a guy maybe like, you don't have to say Hudson Card, but one around those levels. Maybe even Malik Murphy would have made sense. You could go ahead and figure out and say you could bring in that quarterback and things would be better. And you'd be right. The quarterback that currently is going to lead the charge in Jordan-Hare Stadium next year is not on the roster. He's not. But the problem is that this was not the only fault. There were so many other glaring needs that need to be addressed. And I think Hugh Freeze is going to do that. I think what it's going to come at is the form of recruiting. Now, here's the problem. You still have to play the rest of the season. You can't just wave the white flag and say, best of luck to all of our victors. Hopefully you enjoy your season and we'll see you in 2025. That's not the way the world works, and that's not the way the SEC works. And you still have to be able to keep players moving in the right direction to show that there is progress. Because the other part that's really important here is that Auburn's recruiting at an exquisitely strong level underneath Hugh Freeze. Last year, top 10 recruiting class. This year, more than likely, top 10 recruiting class. And I can almost bet your bottom dollar that when you look at the quarterback market that is going to be made available next offseason, regardless of who they land as a 5-star or 4-star for the long term in 2025 class, they're going to set the market for a quarterback. And we'll get to that in a moment. But you still have to keep the foundation in place. The last thing that you can afford to do is watch as one of your premier freshman edge rushers or one of your star pass catchers says, I'm going to go ahead and readjust my own likings and enter the transfer portal at the end of the year. So I'm going to save a year of eligibility. Thanks, but no thanks. I'm done for the rest of the season. Best of luck to you in your future endeavors. That's not what you can afford to do if you're Hugh Freeze. So you got to show that the product on the field is promising for those recruits, because of when they watch what's going on the Plains, they have to see that there is something actually worth keeping and holding on to. That's a big deal. And the problem is that whenever you land a recruit, you're also fighting for recruits with Georgia, with Tennessee, with Alabama. Here's the difference between them. Tennessee feels like a team that's going to go to the college football playoff for the first time and maybe even go on a deep run in the postseason. Alabama is still the standard in the SEC, and Georgia is about ready to take over the mantle potentially as the kings of college football. I've said this a million times. Auburn is the toughest job in college football, and there's not a second close call. You have to be a brave individual to understand what the expectations are. And I'm not saying what the expectations are being in the SEC, because you and I both know what the expectations are when you play against competition like Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Tennessee, Ole Miss now with Lane Kiffin, Texas A&M now with their abundance of riches, and everything else on the basis. The expectations are not met by the fan base. They're met by the boosters behind closed doors. You're expected to recruit at the same level as Alabama. You're expected to recruit at the same level as Georgia. You're expected to produce at the same level as Alabama and Georgia. And ultimately, because of your landing premier players like Alabama and Georgia, you're expected to produce exactly the same results record-wise. And that has not been the case. It hasn't been the case for a while. Gus Malzahn had a hop, skip, and a jump moment. Gene Chizik had the 1 year with Cam Newton. And ultimately, you had it at the very beginning of the Tommy Tuberville era. But it has been for an egregious amount of time. Nowhere near the expectations that should be met on the Plains. There's people out there that believe right now, when you talk about Ole Miss and you talk about Missouri, they're in better situations than Auburn moving forward. That those jobs and that those programs are better than Auburn. And I hate to break it to you, Auburn fans. Right now, they're right. But that does not mean for the long haul. When you talk to me and I talk to people around the league and what they say, they truly believe that programs like Auburn and Texas A&M are sleeping giants that just need the right people at the helm. Is that Mike Elko and Hugh Freeze? I'm not sure. I can tell you what, Hugh Freeze is not winning over many people by throwing his quarterbacks under the bus and the rest of the roster, and he certainly is not making enemies or friends with his former teammates and former players during his time at Liberty and Ole Miss. Go ask Bo Walls what he thinks about the situation. I promise you, Twitter is a very rich place to find out about those things. But what I will say is, if you are Auburn, you have the potential. And I think that Hugh Freeze can get the job done. I'm not ready to throw in the towel and say, this is not the right coach. And if you are trying to throw in the towel, well, let me ask you. You just realized what the expectations were set at as your booster fan base, and you went out and you targeted the coach that you thought was the best fit for your team. Who wants the job? Who's going to take the job? And after you pay that egregious buyout, what it will cost to get rid of the stench of the Hugh Freeze era, and knowing that hell has officially frozen, who comes in and takes over? Because that's the other part that's really important here. Who's the guy that comes in and gets you better results than the ones that are currently happening? And I'm not talking about just recruiting. I'm talking about on-field play and the transfer portal and the coaching staff. By the way, look at Florida when they said, well, recruiting was the most important thing for us. You think right now that they don't miss Dan Mullen and that they wish they could hire a GM just to run the recruiting aspect? Because at least that program had a pulse. Billy Napier is on death's doorstep, but thankfully he got a double-digit win over Mississippi State going into the bye week, so I don't think we're going to see a Ron Zook 2.0. Just because of you don't see the progress on the field doesn't mean it's not working. And I am telling you that if you are an Auburn fan, you have to steer into the skid for the rest of the season because the dark times, they're still ahead. This is not going to be a year that we're talking very promisingly about the future of Auburn. Not when it comes to the offensive line, not when it comes to the wide receiver room, not when it comes to the tight end play outside of Rivaldo Fairweather, not when it comes to the secondary, not when it comes to the defensive front, not when it comes to the quarterback room. That ship has sailed. What you saw on Saturday may not be the best version, but it sure as hell is not the worst. And that's the scary thought if you're an Auburn fan waking up on this Monday afternoon. If you're coming in watching this video, you know the worst could still arise. So you might as well steer into the skid because it is going to be a long season on the Plains. But here's the good news. Like I try to do, there's always the end of the rainbow conversation. You might have the right guy when it comes to recruiting. Top 10 class last year, top 10 class this year. You know that you're going to have certain players that consider Auburn the same way they consider LSU, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, and they're going to say, my plight towards stardom belongs on the Plains. And they're going to land them. It's going to happen. I can promise you that. How do you keep patience enough to be able to make sure that those recruits not only sign on the dotted line, but they're strapped up for week 1 in 2025? And the foundation that is currently being established can be resolved. Because the second that you start panicking as an Auburn fan, as an Auburn booster, and you believe that these instantaneous results must happen here and in the now, you've already lost. And that's on you. That's not on Hugh Freeze. That's not on the athletic staff. That's not on the board of directors. That's not on the board of regents. That's not on the students. That's not on the athletes. That's not on the NIL collective. That's on you panicking because if you're not seeing your results come the way that you want. It's like being a spoiled brat saying, hey, let's go ahead and get you an Xbox 360 on Christmas, but it's only August and you're complaining about it. It's the exact same thing. Hugh Freeze might be the guy for the job. I won't know until next year. You won't know until next year. But I'll tell you what, if he lands the right pieces in the recruiting trail, if he builds the foundation the way that he has, if he is able to go out and kind of follow a Mario Cristobal element by bringing in certain names and then put the cherry on top that is a transfer portal quarterback, yeah, you might be able to see it happen. You might be able to see progress in the right direction. But all those things need to happen first. But if you as a fan base start to panic and realize that we expect more because it's year 2, you've already lost the argument. Get ready for a very dark and gloomy time at Jordan-Hare Stadium this weekend. The self-inflicted wounds, they're not going away anytime soon. The promise that what you thought was going to be this passing attack, it is already dead as disco. The future of what this team can be when fundamentally making mistakes, watch what happened last year with Billy Napier's squad, and that might be a close look into what you have for this year. But it doesn't mean that is the Hugh Freeze era. It could be in about a year from now, but for today, Just embrace what it is. The best piece of advice I got from my grandfather was when things start going south, steer into the skid. Don't allow others to go ahead and take your power for you. Steer into it, embrace it, and make the next step forward. You're Auburn. You're spinning out of control. You might as well just steer into the skid, brace for impact, and realize it's not over. It just is a very, very, very long season. Let me know in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts on Auburn after Saturday's abysmal loss? Do you think that Hugh Freeze needs to be fired? Do you believe that the future of the program is trending in the downward direction? Like, rate, review, subscribe. Make sure you're following us on all the social channels. Make sure that you check us out also at SECUnfiltered.com. I'm Cole Thompson. Where you go, Auburn Nation. It will get better. Peace.